And our views on to Russia-Ukraine war. President Vladimir Putin is once again flipping the script on Ukraine, claiming that Moscow wants peace while Russian troops continue pushing deeper into Ukrainian territory. Now, viewers, Putin here insists that Kyiv is not ready for talks, even as he's the one who's boasting that Russian forces have inflicted what he calls serious losses on Ukraine's strategic reserves. So basically, it is a familiar narrative. On one hand, Russia is the reluctant warrior. Ukraine is being seen as the obstacle. And this is despite the war being launched by Moscow and sustained by daily missile strikes, ground assaults and occupation. Now, Putin even dismissively praised President Zelensky as a talented artist, a remark which is now widely being seen as an attempt to undermine Ukraine's leadership rather than engage in peace talks.
It is entirely incorrect and unfounded to claim we reject anything. The ball is entirely in the court of our Western opponents, primarily the leaders of the Kyiv regime, and in this case, first and foremost, their European sponsors. We are ready for both negotiations and a peaceful resolution to the conflict.
Now, in fact, the message from the Russian president is not just coming for Zelensky, but he's also warning Europe that supporting Ukraine will come at a price. He lashed out at the EU efforts to use frozen Russian assets to fund Ukraine. Now, he claims that such moves will undermine trust in the eurozone and also amount to outright theft, while framing Russia as the moral victim in this conflict that, in fact, Moscow started. Now, Putin here claims that Europe is damaging its own soul, its economy and its credibility, all the while Russian missiles continue to devastate Ukrainian cities. Now, viewers, this at large is Moscow's pressure campaign, which is aimed squarely at Western unity, intimidate, divide and scare Europe back into backing of Ukraine. But Putin is also attempting to rewrite the geopolitical scoreboard, praising US President Donald Trump's frank efforts to end the Ukraine war and also pointing to so-called difficult decisions emerging from the talks with the US president. At the same time, Putin accuses the West of waging a proxy war against Russia, blaming a NATO expansion and Western leadership for forcing Moscow's hand. He claims Russia is now ready to stop fighting immediately, but only if the West backs down, treats Russia with respect and abandons Ukraine. So the message here is pretty clear: peace on Moscow's terms or continued war. In fact, with Putin once again placing responsibility everywhere except on the Kremlin.